Okay, good afternoon. So, usually we're supposed to practice on this day, but because we had to switch the classrooms, I decided to teach you today. So mainly you know about this topic, but probably we want to go to more interesting. Hello, the lesson has started. Okay, so we want to talk about this a little bit more systematically and try to solve a little bit harder questions on this topic. So the topic for today's lesson is first degree equations in one unknown. Sometimes instead of first degree we say linear equations. I want to describe them for you. But let me talk about the word equation in mathematics in general. And then when we learned about that, this will be our main concern in this course. So an equation is not an algebraic expression. First of all, you need to understand that. Algebraic expression, you write something without having equality sign in it. That is an algebraic expression. So for example, I would say that x plus 5 is an algebraic expression. I cannot give you this in the exam and I ask you solve the following algebraic expression. It is meaningless. I can ask you simplify the following algebraic expression, which of course in this case cannot be simplified even more. So please respect these words from the beginning. So I can write another algebraic expression for you. For example, I can have x plus 1 times x minus 1, and I would write plus 5. This is still an algebraic expression, and I can ask you simplify this algebraic expression. What you do, you yourself put equality in front of it. The equality is not, let me change my color. This is the question that I give you, this is in black, but if you start to solve it, solve is a not good word. If you want to follow the instruction to simplify this expression, you yourself put equality in front of it. The equality is not there in the beginning. And you will start multiplying things. X times x is x squared. X times minus 1 is minus x. 1 times x is x. And 1 times minus 1 is minus 1. And then you have a 5 at the end. And then it is not finished yet because I have this one and this one similar. These two are also similar. But these two are gone because they have different signs. And then minus 1 plus 5 is 4. So what you get is this one. So remember, I can ask you simplify this algebraic expression. There is no equality sign in the problem itself. You yourself put equality sign and continue and reach to a point, yes? But you will never ever find a value for x. You will end up with a number, or you will end up with an algebraic expression which is simpler than the word that you started from. But there are another type of questions in the mathematics which are actually very important. They are equations. So it means that I do not have algebraic expression. I have an equality from the beginning involving some variables. Okay? For example, I can write x plus 1 is equal to 5. This is not an algebraic expression. I want you to understand the differences. So this is an equation because the equality sign is in the problem from the beginning. And I cannot ask you to simplify. Of course, I can ask you to simplify this a little bit, but I usually ask you to solve this equation. Okay? What do I mean by solving an equation? I mean, you need to find all possible values for x so that if I replace x with those values and calculate the left-hand side, it becomes equal to the right-hand side. Yes? That is the meaning of solving an equation. So differentiate between these two words, simplification, simplify, and solve. Simplify, the word simplify can be used for algebraic expressions. The word solve can be used for equations. In simplification, you end up with an expression again, but in solving an equation, you end up with one or possible numbers that are solutions of this equation. So for example here, it is clear. Can you guess the value of x? This is so simple that we can guess. So the answer is what? I would say that x equals to 4, let me just write these words, is a solution. Usually another word is root. Is a solution or a root to this equation. So, if I ask you what is the meaning of x equals to 4, this is very important for me that you are able to describe it for me. Can you tell me what is the meaning of this number? When I say that x equals to 4 is a solution, or another common, very common word is a root of this equation, it means what? Yes?
If you substitute x with 4, you will get the answer.
You will get the right hand side and left hand side equal, yes? So if I calculate the left hand side for x equals to 4, I have to write 4 plus 1, the answer is 5. If I ask you what is the right hand side, the right hand side is also 5. So for that particular value, the two sides match. So this is a root. But I cannot claim that I have solved the problem. Be careful about this. Even if you find an answer, it's good, not bad, but you cannot claim that you have solved the equation. When I ask you to solve an equation, it doesn't mean to find a number that satisfies the equation. It means to find all numbers that satisfy the equation. Okay, so be careful about that. If I ask you to solve an equation, of course, because we are working mainly in this course with first degree equations, they can have at most one solution. Okay, but I just want you to understand, when I ask you in the higher courses, when I give you an equation and I ask you to solve that equation, even if by accident or being smart, you can find an answer which is correct, this is not the correct solution, because you need to convince me that there are no other solutions except the one that you found. So solve an equation it doesn't mean to find a particular answer which will work. It means to find all possible answers that will work. Okay, so this is always in the word solve. I will not explain them. For example, I think I can give you something that is very simple. For example, if I ask you to solve this equation, by the way, is this an equation?
Yes.
Yes, because you have equality. But let me also talk about this. How many unknowns do I have in this equation? There is only one variable, the name is x. Okay, so this is why it is called one unknown. Okay, but is this a first degree or linear equation? No. What is the meaning of first degree or linear? It means that the highest power of the unknown is 1. Here, this equation is a linear equation, because if I ask you what is the highest power of the unknown, you say it is 1, x to the power of 1. But what is the highest power of x in this expression? Yes?
2.
2. Why? Because if you multiply that, it becomes x squared minus x, and the highest power, the highest exponents becomes 2. So this is not a first degree equation. This is a second degree equation. That would be the topic of Math 2C in general. Today, mainly in this course, we want to talk about first degree. You might say why there is another name for it, linear. There is also a good reason for that. Because if you use calculator or computer or whatever, later we will talk about functions. If you draw the graph of this function, it becomes a line, a straight line. So that's also a good reason that we call it a linear equation. Yes? Okay, so first degree equation, linear equation, it means that the highest power should be 1. One unknown, it means that we have one variable, because later in Math 2C we will solve equations like this, for example. This is a system of two equations because I have two equalities. And how many variables you see here? No laughing. Okay? So how many unknowns do I have here? Two. So here, this is not the topic. So I just want you to know these words. First degree, what is the meaning of first degree or linear? What is the meaning of the word equation? What is the meaning of if I have one unknown? So you need to understand these words. Okay? And then we do not use simplification for equations. We use solve for equations. Expressions doesn't contain equality. For simplifying them, I myself put in equality sign. But in equations, if I do not have equality, it is not complete. I have to give you equality somewhere. Yes? And I ask you to solve an equation. For example, I don't think it is hard for you to see that x equals to 1 is a root for this equation. Why is that? Because if I replace x with 1, the left-hand side becomes 1 times 1 minus 1, which is 0, and that is equal to right-hand side. So if I stop here and I say that I found a solution, it is not complete because there is another solution for this problem as well. And what is that, for example? 0. But do I know that these are the only two numbers? You need to convince yourself that these are the only ones. If you can convince yourself, you can claim that the solution is complete. Okay? So, if I want to make it summarize, if I give you an equation and I ask you to solve it, even if you can find an answer which is working, you cannot say that I solved the equation unless you can make sure that you found all solutions. And finding all solutions to equations could be extremely hard and sometimes impossible. It is not clear that whatever equation I write on the board, I myself cannot find the answer and the solution. Okay, so be careful about that. But the equations that we are dealing with are actually very simple. You need to practice to be able to solve. Okay, so that is something I want you to know. So let us see how systematically we can solve this equation. So if I ask to solve this equation, it means that do something that you make x alone on one side, and then this will give you the answer or the root to the equation. Okay, one thing is to use the property. I want to get rid of this 1 here. So what can I do? I can add minus 1 to both sides. Because I will not follow this, I just want to repeat this so that you understand. Is that understandable, that this is valid? May you please open the door? Okay, thank you. So, I add minus 1 to it. Is that understandable, that this is valid? If I want to solve this equation, I add minus 1 to both sides. Because if you say this is equal to this is clear that if I add minus 1 to the left and I do the same thing to the right, the equality remains the same. Yes? And what is the point of that? Because I told you that my strategy is to make x alone. So then, by this trick, 1 and 1 are cancelled, 5 and minus 1 is 4. So that would be the solution. I want you to understand that to be able to explain, but I will never do this myself. Learn this trick. You know, what I want to do to make x alone, I start moving things around. Yes? Yes?
Can we write without the middle step in exams?
Yes. Actually, I insist not to write all the steps.
I'm not there, I've got my chart.
I don't think my key works here. Yeah, it's okay. So I would prefer, so let me tell you something. So the strategy in solving the first degree equations is to make the unknown alone on the left hand side, usually better. Okay? And to do that, you can do valid things. You can add or subtract things or whatever, or you can divide or you can multiply. But you need to be careful about something. If you want to move things around, if you move a positive number or a variable to one side, you have to change it to negative. And if it is negative, you have to change it to positive. It doesn't matter if you want, you can write it like this. But if I myself want to solve this equation, I would say to myself, my goal is to make x alone, so I have to get rid of this 1. So I move this 1 to the other side and keep x on the left-hand side. In this movement, you need to remember to change the sign of the term that you are moving around. So here, I keep 5. 5 is already there. I want to get rid of this positive 1. I take it and move it to the right, but the price that I have to pay is to make it negative. I myself will follow this, but if you ask me why this method works, I can explain it to you. This method is, you see, this one and that one are gone. If you see this, it is exactly what I have written here. Yes or no? Okay, so then I immediately say that the answer is 4. For example, if I ask you to solve this equation, so let me make it 5 and let me make it 2 and then let me make it -7, for example. If I ask you to solve this equation, first of all, let us repeat everything. Is this an equation or an algebraic expression?
Equation.
It's an equation. Why?
It's equality.
Because you see equality. So how many unknowns you see in this problem?
1.
1. Is it the first degree or another name? Is it a linear equation or not? Why? Because the highest power of the unknown is 1. So everything is according to this title. Can I ask you to simplify this equation? Usually no. The question is to solve this equation. It means find all possible values of x so that when I replace x with those numbers, the number on the left becomes equal to the number on the right. So to solve this, you have learned how to do it in Grund school, and I don't know how did you do that. But the method that we want to use is this. My strategy is to put x on the left-hand side. This term is already on the left-hand side, so don't move it around. But there is another term that contains x, but unfortunately it is on the right-hand side. So you have to move it to the left-hand side. But the price to pay is to change the sign. What is the sign of 2 here? It's not written, it is positive. So when you move it to the left, it becomes -2x. And then you have this equality. -7 is already there, so don't touch it. But 6 does not contain x, so you have to move it to the other side. This is positive x. When you move it to the right, it becomes -6. Yes? Now in this way, it is faster. So what happens? You have x's on the left, you have numbers on the right, then you have to do simplifications. So here you simplify these two. 5x minus 2x. What is left is 3x. But -7 minus 6 is -13. This is also some common mistake I have seen. Some students fake this one. This cannot be moved. Yes, this can be, if I want to make x alone, what can I do here? Divide by 3. Here I cannot move it around. So you divide everything by 3 because your strategy is to make x alone. When you divide this, x will be left alone. On the right hand side, do not put in your calculator. You have to keep the exact value. Unless coincidentally that fraction can be written exactly. For example, it is 1/2, you can write 0.5. But this number, you have to keep it in this form. And if I ask you what is the name of this number, you can say this is a root, or you can say a solution. But we can do better, because first degree equations cannot have more than one solution. So it's better to write the root or the solution in this case. But if there are more than one solutions, you have to mention a solution or a root. Yes? Okay, so that is the answer. Now let me ask you this question. These are fundamental questions. Then immediately we start solving harder problems. But this means that you have to know about these terminologies. If someone asks me, Babak, okay, you got this number. What is the meaning of this number? I should be able to explain. Otherwise, this is completely useless to learn how to solve. You are solving hard problems without knowing what you are doing, actually. This is useless. Okay, so what's the meaning of that? It means that this is, let me repeat these words. Can you just complete this? What's the meaning of this number? Yes?
It's the number that when you replace x with it, it gives you
No, replace x with it. It is up to here is very good. If you replace x,
the right hand side and the left hand side is equal.
they are equal, yes. And if I want to emphasize a little bit more, even though you use the word they, that was correct, I would say that this is the only number with that property. So you cannot find any other number except that number, so that when you replace it here and here, they become equal. Let me check that if we got the correct answer. Sometimes it is good to be able to check your answer. Even though this is up to you, it is not part of the question unless I ask you to do it. Otherwise, that's enough. If you are confident about your method, you don't need to check it. But let us check. If I ask you to check it out, how should you do that? You need to write the left-hand side is equal to. You need to write the right-hand side is equal to. And calculate them using that number. So I go to the left-hand side, I have 5. Multiply. Instead of x, I replace it with that number. It's minus 13 over 3. And then after that, I have a plus 6. And I patiently calculate this. For example, if I want to multiply these two numbers, 5 times that one is minus 65 divided by 3, and then I have plus 6. Okay, 6 is, of course, if you want, you can just do it patiently. So this becomes 18 over 3, yes? Because I want to have the same denominator. So this becomes 13, and what happens here is minus 57, am I right? I'm tired. Is that right? Minus 57?
Yes.
Yes. So that would be the left-hand side. Now the right-hand side. The right-hand side is 2x minus 7. So it is 2. Instead of x, I put this one. Did I make a mistake?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is
That was 47. So I'm really tired now. So it becomes 13 times divided by 3 plus minus 7. And then let us check. This becomes minus 26 over 3 minus 7. But instead of minus 7, I can write minus 21 divided by 3. Minus 26 minus 21 is exactly minus 47. Yes? So you see that, therefore, the right-hand side is equal to the left-hand side. Yes, because both of them become minus 47 over 3. That's the meaning of a solution. Yes? By the way, solving harder questions in equations might be really hard, but checking, if I give you an answer and I ask you, is it a right answer or not, this is easy to check. For example, you might, of course we will study it in Math 2C, but let me consider this as an equation. Let me make it 4 for the time being. Okay. So you don't know yet how to solve this equation. Why is that? Because this is not a first degree equation, it's a second degree equation. Because the highest power of x that you see is 2. Okay. For example, we can have this type of equations. These are called root equations. So the unknown is below the square root sign or something. So for example, Later, we will try to learn how to solve these type of equations, how to solve these type of equations, and more complex equations, okay? But solving them systematically is for higher courses. But if I give you an answer and I ask you, do you think this is a solution to this equation? Yes or no, you can answer it, even though the equation that I give you in the exam is complicated. Yes?
Did you say that first degree equations are that the highest power is 1?
The first degree, yes. So this is not a first degree
Well,
equation.
there's like square root. It's technically not higher than 1. I mean, it's a half.
Yes, but it is not linear. For linear, it should be exactly equal to
Exactly.
1. Yes, yes. If I said something like that, it was wrong.
Okay.
I should have said that it's exactly 1. Yes, thank you for correcting. Okay, so here, let me ask you, do you think that x equals to 1 is a solution of this equation or not? Even if you don't know how to solve and reach to this, but do you think this is a solution? How you replace x with 1, what would be the left hand side? It becomes 4. What is the right hand side? Is 4. But can I claim that I solved my equation? Why not?
Because then it's only one possible solution.
Yes, because who knows? Might be there is also another number that I couldn't find it yet. And actually, in this case, can you guess what is the other number? There is another number, I think, here. So you see, this is I want you to feel. Even though this equation is not complicated at all, you see it's very short.
It's minus 4.
It's minus 4. And even if you find minus 4, is there any other one? So I want you to understand, minus 4 will work. Why? Minus 4 to power 2 is 16. 3 times minus 4 is minus 12. And what's the answer? It's 4. So the guess minus 4 is also correct. But still, I cannot claim I solved my equation because there might be another number that is working. Okay? Later we will see that no, these are the only 2 ones. We cannot find any more. Okay, so I'm just telling you that if I give you a complicated equation in the exam, I will not be able to ask you to solve it because you haven't studied those methods yet. But I can give you an answer and ask you, do you think this is a solution or not? Okay, for example, is x equals to 1 a solution of the second equation? Is x equal to 1 a solution of this equation? You see, I haven't told you how to solve this equation. This will come later. But I can ask you, is this a solution for this? What do you think? Do you think x equal to 1 is a solution?
No.
So you can check it in your head. If I replace, what happens for the left-hand side? The left-hand side becomes the square root of 1 plus 1 plus square root of 12 minus 1. Yes? And then what happens? This becomes a square root of 2 plus a square root of 11. This is the left-hand side. But it is clear square root of 2 plus a square root of 11 is not equal to 5. Yes? So that is not correct. So x equals to 1 is not a solution. But what do you think? Do you think x equals to 3 is a solution?
No.
Isn't it?
Well,
Is x equals to 3 as a solution of this equation? This is yes, I think. Yes, because if you replace x with 3, what happens? The left-hand side becomes equal to square root of 3 plus 1 plus square root of 12 minus 3 is equal to square root of 4 plus square root of 9. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. If I add them, it becomes 5. And this is exactly the right-hand side. So for that value, the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. But can I claim, yes, I solved the equation? No, because we don't know. Might be there are some numbers that I couldn't find yet. It is better than nothing. I could guess something, but it is not solved yet because I don't know if there are other solutions or not. Is that clear? So these things I want you to understand, there are two more things conceptually. These are conceptually. Then when they are finished, we go to hard problems, which are technically hard. Technically hard, you need to do practice. But conceptually hard, you need to understand. Okay, let me give you another equation, and I want you to see what is your understanding. If I will keep them very simple, because my point is to teach you some concepts. If I ask you to solve this equation, how do you solve it for me? I ask you to solve this equation. Okay? I pause the video, give you 1 or 2 minutes, because this is so simple algebraically. I will come to harder problems later. Yes, come on.
Will you ask us to check our answers often in the exams?
No, usually no. So usually the end of the problem is here, not here. Did you get your answer? No answers yet? Yes? Repeat it, please.
Or negative 5 over 16.
Yes. Because I did it in my head. If I didn't make it wrong, so that is the answer. Yes. That's the correct answer, I think. So what we have to do, we have to simplify things. So it becomes minus 6 plus 12 x. This becomes minus 15 minus 10x. On the right hand side, I will have 12x minus 4. I multiply this is minus 12 plus 6x. Yes? I just multiply this, and that, and that. And then 12x minus 10x are similar, so it becomes 2x. Minus 6 minus 15 is minus 21. It's the simplified version. And here 12x plus 6x is 18x. And this is minus 16. Yes? And then what I have to do, I have to move this to the left, so it becomes 2x minus 18x. I keep minus 16 there, I move minus 21 there. But I have to change the signs. This becomes minus 16x, this becomes 5. And then x becomes 5 divided by minus 16, which of course I prefer to put the negative sign here. It doesn't matter, of course. So that is the exact answer to this. And by the way, you think it is much more than random guessing. It was not probably easy for me at all to guess such a number for that equation. So it means that we are actually doing something. Yes?
Minus 5 times 16, correct?
Here. Yes, I divide minus 5 over 16 is also correct. Yes, yes. Yeah, but I prefer to write it here because I divide everything by minus 16. So there is no difference between minus a over b, minus a over b, or a minus b. These three fractions are the same. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.